Sir, 5 seconds. Grab your things and walk out or you're leaving in cuffs.
Officer, I'm a paying customer sitting in my own business. You are out of line.
Hands away from the bag. Last warning.
You're recording this, right?
Then understand this arrest will end your career. Sir, you have exactly 5 seconds to grab your things and walk out that door. You're going to be leaving in cuffs.
The warm morning sun spilled into Savory Grains Bakery, illuminating fresh loaves and the rich aroma of roasted coffee. For most, it was an ordinary Tuesday, but that calm was about to shatter. Sir, 5 seconds. Grab your things and walk out, or you're leaving in cuffs. The voice was sharp and urgent. Marcus Bryant didn't look up immediately. He tapped the save icon on his tablet, closed the leather cover, and slowly raised his eyes. A young officer stood over him, hand hovering near his holster. "Officer," Marcus said, calm but firm, "I'm reviewing reports and haven't disturbed anyone. I am not leaving." "You're loitering," the officer snapped. His name tag read Bennett. He looked barely 24. "The manager wants the tables clear." "Now get up." "I am a paying customer," Marcus replied, gesturing toward his coffee and scone. "The manager is handling a vendor delivery in the back." Bennett's jaw tightened. "I saw you through the window. You've been sitting 45 minutes watching the register. We've had reports of vagrants harassing staff. You fit the description." Marcus paused, glancing at his polished shoes, tailored trousers, and silk tie. "Vagrant," he said slowly. "Officer Bennett, you're making a grave error. I'd like to show you my identification in my briefcase." "Hands away from the bag," Bennett barked, unsnapping his holster strap. Other customers froze. "One more move, and it gets ugly." "I'm trying to help you avoid a lawsuit," Marcus said. "I am not a threat. I am not leaving." Bennett had no idea Marcus Bryant owned the entire regional Savory Grains franchise. The officer saw only a black man in a suit, apparently watching the staff. Implicit bias filled his mind. The man must be a threat. "Before we go further, tell me where you're watching from, your city, state, or country. And if you believe business owners shouldn't be harassed in their own stores, subscribe now. This story is about to get worse." Marcus had not sought conflict. 55 years old and retired from aerospace engineering, he bought the bakery to create jobs, pay staff fairly, and give the community a safe space. He arrived every Tuesday, sitting at the back table near the window, reviewing reports, approving payroll, and tasting new pastries. To outsiders, he was just a man with a tablet. To locals, he was a mentor, sponsor, and supporter of the neighborhood. To Officer Bennett, he was a vagrant, a problem to be removed. Bennett had been on the force 6 months, transferred from a rural county. His approach: dominate, control, and clear the streets. He saw Marcus through the glass and assumed he was casing the bakery. Bennett parked illegally in the red zone, swaggering into the store. Marcus noticed the tension immediately. Any sudden move could trigger disaster. He kept calm, hands visible, planning his next words carefully. "I'm counting to 3, Bennett said. "Stand up and leave, or you'll be arrested for trespassing and disobeying orders." "On whose authority?" Marcus asked. "Has the manager asked me to leave? Has the owner asked me to leave?" "I am the authority," Bennett barked. "You're disrupting business." At that moment, the back office door opened. Lisa Caldwell, the store manager, stepped out, clipboard in hand. Her eyes widened. The uniformed officer was towering over Marcus. "Officer, is there a problem?" she asked cautiously. "Stay back," Bennett yelled. "I'm handling a disturbance. For your safety, stay behind the counter." "It's not a disturbance. That's Mr. Bryant. He's not." "Stay back," Bennett shouted. "One more word and you're joining him." Marcus intervened calmly. "Lisa, do not engage. Call my attorney." The The number is on the emergency contact list. Bennett's face flushed. The man sitting quietly, giving orders, mentioning lawyers. It didn't fit his mental script. He stepped closer, gripping Marcus's arm. Stand up. Now. I am showing you my ID and business license, Marcus said slowly. I am the owner of this bakery. You are attempting to remove me from my own business. I don't care. You had your chance, Bennett said, reaching for handcuffs. Marcus rose slowly, letting Bennett twist his arm behind his back. He felt indignity but kept his composure. You're making a mistake that will cost this city dearly, he said quietly. Tell it to the booking sergeant. Bennett grunted, snapping the first cuff. The click echoed across the bakery. The second cuff followed, cold against Marcus's wrist. You're hurting him, Lisa yelled, filming on her phone. That is the owner. I am compliant, officer, Marcus said. No resistance. I've informed you of my identity. You are arresting me without cause. Bennett shoved him toward the door. Outside, passersby stared. A black man in handcuffs being led away. They didn't know the truth, but Marcus did. Every camera in the store recorded it all, and soon the world would see. The ride to the precinct was silent. Bennett focused on imagined threats. Marcus observed every detail. The time, speed, and even Bennett's personal phone. He was calm and patient, planning his next moves. At the 12th precinct, the doors rolled down behind them. Bennett marched Marcus to processing. Desk Sergeant Thomas Miller looked up, saw Marcus in cuffs, and froze. Officer Bennett, Miller said quietly. Yes, Sarge? Bennett replied, oblivious. Why is Mr. Bryant handcuffed? Miller asked, eyes narrowing. Bennett stammered. He refused to ID. He said he owned the place. Just another troublemaker. Miller turned to Marcus. You're the bakery owner. The cuffs are tight, Marcus said, rubbing his wrists. And yes, your officer has made a serious error. Bennett's face turned pale. I didn't see ID. Marcus corrected him, calm and precise. I offered my business license. You refused to look. You threatened me. You arrested me. Miller's expression hardened. Uncuff him. Now. Bennett's hands shook. The metal fell away. Marcus adjusted his jacket and straightened up. He was already preparing for the fight ahead. Outside the chaos, a battle of competence versus ego had begun. Neither man would forget the morning at Savory Grains. The moment the handcuffs clicked open, Marcus Bryant straightened his jacket and took a deep breath. He had endured the physical indignity, but the real battle was just beginning. Sergeant Miller guided him toward a quieter corner of the precinct, away from the filing officers and ringing phones. Mr. Bryant, I don't know what to say, Miller muttered, shaking his head. Are you hurt? My wrists are sore. Marcus replied calmly, but I am more concerned about the precedent this sets. An officer cannot just decide a man is a threat because of how he looks or how long he sits in his own store. Bennett, standing nearby, avoided eye contact. His face was pale, and his posture was rigid. He was still trying to process what had just happened. The realization that he had arrested the owner of the bakery, a prominent figure in the city. Officer Bennett, Miller said, his voice firm, explain to me exactly why you placed Mr. Bryant in handcuffs. I saw a man sitting in the bakery for a long time, Bennett stammered. He fit the description of someone who had been causing disturbances in the area. I thought he was loitering. Miller blinked slowly, his disbelief palpable. Do you understand that Mr. Bryant is the owner of that establishment? Do you realize that your actions constitute a false arrest and a violation of his rights. Bennett swallowed hard. I didn't see ID. He said he owned it, but I thought. You thought? Miller's tone sharpened. Officer, you threatened a man with your weapon, twisted his arms, and placed him in cuffs without any confirmation. Do you understand the gravity of that mistake? Marcus watched silently, observing every micro-expression. He wasn't going to interrupt. He knew the power of letting the truth speak for itself. Sir, Marcus finally said, addressing Miller, I am requesting a formal record of this arrest. I want Officer Bennett to document, under oath, the exact reason he believed I committed any crime. I want the paperwork, fingerprints, mugshot, everything. This cannot be dismissed as a simple apology. It must be a paper trail. Miller exhaled, nodding slowly. I understand, Mr. Bryant. That is unusual, but under the circumstances, it is justified. Bennett's hands clenched into fists at his sides. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His ego and fear warred within him. He knew he had made a colossal error. Every procedure he had relied on now worked against him. Marcus continued, his voice firm but controlled. I want this handled exactly by the book. I want the official charges documented, even if they are false. That is the only way to ensure accountability and prevent this from happening again, to me or anyone else. Miller nodded, signaling another officer to prepare the booking materials. Officer Bennett, you will follow procedure exactly. Mr. Bryant, I apologize for this error, but we must do as he requests. Bennett's jaw tightened. He followed Marcus to the booking station, each step heavy with humiliation. He had trained for this moment in theory, but never in reality. The man he had handcuffed was composed, confident, and completely unafraid. He could feel the eyes of the precinct staff on him, the whispered conversations, and the disbelief. Marcus sat on the bench as the booking officer guided him through the process. The fingerprint machine clicked and scanned, capturing every ridge in perfect detail. The camera flashed, recording his image for the public record. Marcus did not flinch. He remained perfectly still, aware of every second and every detail. You're calm, Bennett muttered, his voice barely audible. I have no reason to panic, Marcus replied. You, on the other hand, should consider the consequences of your actions carefully. This is not a lesson you will forget anytime soon. The booking officer handed Marcus a receipt for the fingerprints and mugshot. Marcus examined it, then looked at Bennett. Do you understand now that my identification, my property ownership, and my calm demeanor were never threats? Do you see how your assumptions put everyone at risk? Bennett swallowed. He nodded slowly. Yes, I see it now. Marcus's gaze did not soften. See it is not enough. This must be documented. The law must recognize the error. Otherwise, it is just another incident that will repeat itself endlessly. At that moment, Lieutenant Karen Ford entered the precinct, clearly flustered. Mr. Bryant, I've just spoken with Councilman Reynolds. I understand there's been a serious misunderstanding. I am deeply sorry. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Marcus said flatly. It was a false arrest, a violation of my constitutional rights, and a result of bias and incompetence. Apologies alone are insufficient. Lieutenant Ford's face turned pale. She gestured toward Miller. We can drop the charges immediately. You can leave, and this never has to appear in the system. No, Marcus said, his voice cold and unyielding. The room went silent. I want the booking process completed. I want Officer Bennett to formally document his actions and reasoning. I want a public record of what occurred. Bennett looked like he might collapse. He realized he had trapped himself. Refusing to follow the request could make things worse. Complying would humiliate him in front of the precinct and the public. The officers began the paperwork under Marcus's insistence. Each form was filled meticulously, each statement recorded. Marcus reviewed them, making corrections when needed. He watched Bennett squirm as the officer wrote down, in detail, what he had done and why he had believed it justified. By the book, Marcus repeated, "Every detail accurate. Do not leave anything out. This is your responsibility now, Officer Bennett." Bennett's hands shook as he documented the incident, every word a reminder of his failure. Marcus could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but he remained calm. He had planned for this. He had trained himself to observe, to record, to control the narrative, even when others were irrational. After an hour, the paperwork was complete. Marcus was released on his own recognizance. He walked out of the precinct and into the sunlight, greeted by reporters, cameras, and Lisa, who held the bakery's video footage of the incident. The story would go public immediately. The cell phone video showed everything. Marcus seated, calm, polite. Bennett aggressive, escalating, the other customers frozen. The narrative was undeniable. A man arrested in his own store, not for any crime, but because of assumptions and bias. Marcus knew the impact this would have, not just on Bennett, but on the entire community. The evidence, now public, would shine a light on a system that allowed rookie officers to act without oversight. This was more than a personal victory. It was a statement. The bakery, Marcus's property, the community he served, all were reminders that authority without accountability is dangerous. And Officer Bennett, once proud of his uniform and supposed control, would have to live with the consequences of underestimating a man who refused to be intimidated, a man who demanded justice by the book. By the time Marcus Bryant left the precinct, word had already begun to spread. Lisa Caldwell, the bakery manager, had uploaded the video from her phone to a local news station. The footage was raw but undeniable. A calm, well-dressed man being threatened and handcuffed by a rookie officer in his own business. Reporters swarmed outside the precinct. Cameras flashed as Marcus adjusted his suit jacket and approached the microphones. He did not speak yet. He allowed the murmurs and clicks to settle. Then, when silence fell, he began. "Yesterday, I was arrested in my own bakery because an officer could not conceive that a black man could own a business like mine," Marcus said. His voice was firm, measured, and controlled. He did not see a citizen. He saw a suspect. Because of bias, he violated my rights and the sanctity of my property. The crowd of reporters leaned forward. Questions began to fly. "Mr. Bryant, what will you do next? Are you filing charges? Was anyone injured?" Marcus remained calm. "I am pursuing the matter through legal channels. The goal is accountability, not revenge. I want to ensure this does not happen to anyone else in this city." The story went viral within hours. Clips circulated on social media showing the stark contrast. Marcus, calm and collected, versus Officer Kyle Bennett, aggressive and out of control. News outlets ran headlines like "Bakery Owner Arrested in Own Store" and "Rookie Officer's Mistake Exposed by Video." Within a day, Marcus had his attorney, David Harmon, prepare a federal civil rights lawsuit. The complaint named Officer Bennett personally and the city for allowing such misconduct. It cited violations of Marcus's 4th and 14th Amendment rights, false arrest, and unlawful seizure. Marcus was deliberate in his approach. "This is not just about me," he told Harmon. "It's about everyone who doesn't have a franchise, a lawyer on call, or the ability to fight back. Every step must be documented. Every fact must be unassailable." Meanwhile, the department scrambled. Internal Affairs opened an investigation into Bennett's actions. They reviewed the bakery's security footage, confirming Marcus's account. The video clearly showed Marcus sitting calmly, never raising his voice, never resisting, and never reaching for anything threatening. Bennett's report, by contrast, described Marcus as belligerent, furtive, and disruptive. It was a textbook example of how bias, inexperience, and ego could combine to create disaster. Internal Affairs found that Bennett had refused to accept Marcus's proof of ownership, ignored repeated verbal assurances, and escalated the situation unnecessarily. Bennett was placed on unpaid administrative leave. The rookie's union representative could do little. The evidence was overwhelming. You arrested a man who not only owns the business, but also has connections throughout the city, the representative told him bluntly. There's nothing I can do. Marcus, meanwhile, focused on public impact. He gave interviews to national media, highlighting the systemic issues. This is not an isolated incident. It's a pattern. Aggressive policing without oversight puts communities at risk, especially when assumptions are made based on race or appearance. The lawsuit was filed, and the city quickly realized the potential damage. Bennett's actions had drawn national attention, and the Department of Justice took notice. Federal investigators began reviewing the precinct's stop and frisk data, uncovering patterns of harassment and profiling. Marcus's case became a symbol for broader reform. 6 weeks later, Bennett was terminated. At 24, he lost his badge, pension, and career. He returned to his hometown, working construction, forever known as the officer who arrested a man in his own store. The public ridicule was severe, and his name became a cautionary tale in law enforcement circles. Meanwhile, the city, desperate to contain the fallout, offered a settlement of $1.2 million. Marcus did not accept it for personal gain. He stood outside the Savory Grains bakery and announced the creation of the Thorn Legal Defense Fund, dedicated to helping people who are wrongfully stopped, harassed, or arrested. This money, Marcus told the gathered crowd, is for those who do not have the resources or visibility to fight back. It is for the kids, the everyday citizens, and the community. I did not win because I was innocent. I won because I had the means and the knowledge. That is not justice. Real justice should not depend on wealth or influence. The bakery remained open and busier than ever. Patrons came from across the city to support Marcus and his staff. Security footage from that day hung in the 12th Precinct briefing room, a stark reminder. Assumption is the mother of all screw-ups. Check the ID. Marcus continued his Tuesday routine. He sat at the back table, reviewing spreadsheets, approving payroll, and sampling pastries. But now, police officers walking past nodded in recognition. No one doubted his presence or questioned his authority in his own store. The public impact of the case was immense. It sparked conversations about policing, racial bias, and accountability. Marcus's strategic decision to insist on a paper trail and to demand that Bennett formally document every misstep ensured that the system could not sweep the incident under the rug. At every press conference, Marcus stressed the larger lesson. Authority without wisdom is dangerous. Without checks, even small mistakes can escalate into serious violations of rights. He made it clear that his fight was for everyone, not for personal revenge or profit. Through the media coverage, the story reached thousands, then millions. The contrast between the composed, well-dressed black man and the aggressive rookie officer became a visual shorthand for bias, incompetence, and the power of documentation. Even city officials who had initially hoped to quietly settle the matter were forced into transparency. They had to acknowledge the mistake, reform training protocols, and commit to preventing similar incidents. Marcus's case had created a ripple effect that no apology alone could contain. For Bennett, there was no escape. He had become a symbol of what could go wrong when training, ego, and bias intersect. For Marcus, it was proof that diligence, composure, and knowledge of one's rights could transform a personal injustice into a public victory. And yet, Marcus remained humble. "I didn't just fight for myself," he said in an interview. "I fought for every person who would have had no voice, no recourse, no platform. That's why this story matters. Accountability should be a standard, not a privilege." The bakery thrived, the nonprofit grew, and the city learned a painful lesson about assumptions, authority, and responsibility. Marcus Bryant had turned a wrongful arrest into a platform for systemic change, and he did it without losing his composure, his dignity, or his mission. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, cameras, and curious onlookers. Marcus Bryant stood at the podium, flanked by his attorney, David Harmon, and several civil rights advocates. The morning sun glinted off his polished shoes and tailored suit, but he was focused entirely on the task at hand, ensuring justice and accountability. "Yesterday, I was wrongfully arrested in my own bakery by an officer who could not recognize that a black man can own a business," Marcus began, his voice steady and commanding. This was not an accident. It was profiling, fueled by bias and reinforced by inexperience. Authority without oversight is dangerous, and it must be challenged. Reporters scribbled notes furiously. Cameras recorded every word. Marcus paused, letting the weight of the situation sink in. He had already turned the video from the bakery and the precinct into evidence, showing Officer Kyle Bennett's aggressive behavior and repeated refusals to recognize his identity. The case went quickly to court. Marcus's legal team presented a meticulous timeline. Bennett's initial observation, his threats, the refusal to accept identification, the forced handcuffing, and the false arrest report. The courtroom was silent as the video played. Marcus remained seated, calm, eyes forward, as the evidence spoke for itself. Bennett's defense attorney attempted to argue that the officer acted in good faith, following standard procedure and responding to a perceived threat. But the footage made the argument impossible to sustain. Marcus had not resisted, had not raised his voice, and had fully complied while repeatedly identifying himself. Every claim of threatening behavior collapsed under scrutiny. When it was his turn to speak, Bennett stood, nervous and pale. I thought he was loitering. I was following procedure," he stammered. The words sounded hollow in the courtroom, almost comical compared to the undeniable evidence. Marcus's attorney, David Harmon, did not even raise his voice. He simply asked, "Did you ever attempt to verify his claim that he owned the bakery?" Bennett's hands shook. "No." "That's all," Harmon said. The statement hung in the air. It was a moment of quiet devastation for Bennett. He had failed to follow the simplest, most fundamental principle of policing. Verify before you escalate. The judge, an experienced and no-nonsense woman, leaned forward. "Officer Bennett, do you understand that your actions violated Mr. Bryant's constitutional rights? That you arrested him without probable cause, threatened him, and caused significant distress and reputational damage?" "Yes, Your Honor," Bennett muttered, barely audible. "Do you understand the consequences of those actions?" the judge pressed. Bennett swallowed hard. Yes. The courtroom remained silent. The magnitude of the rookie officer's failure had never been so clear. Marcus had turned a wrongful arrest into a masterclass in accountability, showing how even a single act of bias and negligence could have consequences. Outside, the media coverage exploded. Headlines screamed. Bakery owner wins against rookie officer. False arrest leads to federal lawsuit. Bias exposed in Savory Grains incident. Marcus had become a symbol for the fight against unjust treatment and unchecked authority. The city had already agreed to a settlement of $1.2 million. Marcus, however, did not accept the funds for personal gain. At a press conference outside the bakery, he announced the creation of the Thorn Legal Defense Fund, dedicated to helping people who had been wrongfully stopped or harassed and lacked resources to fight back. This money is for those who cannot defend themselves, Marcus said. For the young men stopped walking home. For the people arrested without cause. I did not win because I was innocent. I won because I had the means and knowledge. That is not justice. That is privilege. And we must fix that system. Bennett's career, meanwhile, lay in ruins. He had been terminated, lost his pension, and returned to his rural hometown. Public opinion was unforgiving. His name became synonymous with poor judgment, bias, and failure to follow protocol. Marcus had not just won the lawsuit. He had secured a permanent public accountability for his actions. The bakery flourished. People from across the city came to support Marcus and his staff. Patrons knew the story. They knew the man behind the suit was not just a business owner, but a champion for justice. Officers on patrol now nodded respectfully when passing the store. Recognition and understanding replaced suspicion. Inside the 12th precinct, a screenshot from the bakery footage hung in the briefing room. Beneath it was a simple caption: "Assumption is the mother of all screw-ups. Check that ID." It was a quiet, permanent reminder to every rookie and veteran officer that authority without verification is dangerous. Marcus continued his Tuesday routine. He sat at the back table, reviewing spreadsheets, checking inventory, approving payroll, and sampling pastries. But now, his calm presence carried a weight of authority. No one questioned him. No one challenged him. He had proven that composure, preparation, and persistence could turn a personal injustice into a lasting reform. The impact of the incident extended far beyond the bakery. Law enforcement agencies across the city began reevaluating training protocols, emphasizing verification, de-escalation, and recognition of bias. Marcus had created change that affected not only the rookie officer, but the entire community. And yet, for Marcus, the victory was not about personal glory. "This is about dignity," he explained in interviews. "Authority without wisdom is just bullying. Everyone deserves protection under the law, regardless of wealth, race, or influence. That is the standard we must hold, and that is the legacy we must leave." In the end, the story of Marcus Bryant and Savory Grains became more than a viral news story. It was a lesson in courage, patience, and accountability. It showed the power of standing firm, documenting truth, and demanding that systems honor their obligations to all citizens. Even today, Marcus sits at his usual table on Tuesdays. The aroma of coffee and bread fills the air. Cameras watch the bakery, but the tension has disappeared. Patrons enjoy their pastries, officers nod respectfully, and Marcus continues his work, knowing that one man's vigilance can inspire a community, demand accountability, and create a lasting change. The rookie officer had lost everything, but Marcus had gained far more. Not money, not fame, but justice, reform, and the proof that standing up for one's rights can ripple through society, protecting others who might not have the means or influence to fight back. His story is a reminder that dignity is fragile but powerful, that a single act of injustice can be transformed into a catalyst for change, and that every person, no matter their position, has the ability to insist that the law protects them, and that those entrusted with authority must be held accountable.